We're here today with Joe, and we are here to talk some yoga philosophy. Joe had a question for me, and I figured we could all answer it together, and maybe it'll be of some benefit to you all out there. So.
Awesome. Okay. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Sutra 1-2 states Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which basically translated means that yoga is for the calming or the restraining of the fluctuations of the mind or the consciousness. I was just wondering, in the Bhagavad Gita, are there similar shlokas that kind of expound on the same concept or something similar?
So what's interesting, if we take that question just a step further too, and we talk about 1.2 in the sutras, and then we talk about 1.3, which is then Patanjali describes what happens once we achieve this state of yoga, of calming the chitta and the vrittis, or calming the fluctuating mind. Then what happens? Well, the seer sees their own true self.
Yes.
It's a pretty straightforward, as a sutra should be, pretty direct in its dialogue. And it doesn't give much else, which is exactly what a sutra should be. It's a thread, it's a short, terse aphorism, as what everybody says in the yoga community. So, your question is, where might you find this in the Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
That's a great question. And I'll go help people with their teacher training, and I'll go in and teach a section of the correlation between the Yoga Sutras and the Bhagavad Gita. And where do they meet? And then where are they very different?
Right.
Because there is a similarity in them. And what you find in the Bhagavad Gita is chapter 6. It's really one of my favorite chapters in the Gita. Because it really goes forward and it really pulls some of this traditional Ashtanga yoga concepts out. This eight-limbed yogic path. So in it, I'm just going to read it, because I'm going to read it from two different texts. So I like to always look at two different texts. So I have the Bhagavad Gita as it is by Prabhupada, and then I have the Bhagavad Gita by Winthrop Sargent, which predates when Prabhupada wrote his. Winthrop Sargent was a Sanskrit scholar, so it has a very scholarly feel.
Okay.
Where Prabhupada, even though it does have a scholarly feel, but it does have his own take on bhakti, which is of the tradition of India. So there is a bit more heart to it. But I like both because I'll cross-reference both. So I'm going to read both of where this comes out and how it translates some of the Sanskrit that works with it. So I'll start with the English. So this is 620 to 623 in the Gita. So it says, in this stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material activities by practicing yoga. So, I'm just going to do it line by line. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practicing yoga. This gives us a little more than the Yoga Sutras. But let me explain. So if you look at the Sanskrit, it's Yatro Paramate Chittam Nirodham Yoga.
Yeah, just like
Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So he said he didn't have Vritti in there. But he has Yatra, the changing state of affairs, right? The state of affairs. And so in this, you have the same Sanskrit, right?
Yeah.
It really, you have Nirodha, you have Chitta, you have Yoga,
so
right?
Ratra Paramate, or if I'm saying that correctly, is that referring to the mind? Is that the word?
Well, in the state of affairs, and then he clarifies Samadhi. In the state of affairs, and he puts in samadhi. So you don't see samadhi in this text, but what you do, he's referencing it to make it clear for the reader. Okay. It's a good translation. A good translator will do that. So it's kind of like if I translated, I'm between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
If I translate that into Spanish, what they say is, I'm between a sword and a wall. But if
yes.
I'm translating it to English, I will translate it as I'm between a rock and a hard place. In India, they say I'm between a swamp and quicksand, or something like that. But for you would translate it into your own language, their own slang. I'm between a rock and a hard place.
Yet the essence is the same in all three.
Essence is the same.
Okay.
Yes. So he's referring to samadhi. So Prabhupada fills that gap for us.
Okay.
So then the yoga chitta vritti nirodha, that would be the Yoga Sutras. But here you have chitta nirodha yoga. So it's there, right?
It's there.
So in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities. So you can see this gives us a little bit of depth into it. Because let's say you're a new yoga student and you pick up the Yoga Sutras and you think, all right, I want to practice yoga. Okay, yoga is the calming of the fluctuating mind. It's a bigger order to say, in the state of samadhi, in the state of liberation, this is what happens. Right? You're further down the road,
yes,
right?
Totally.
So somebody coming to yoga for the first time, to tell them that you're going to calm the fluctuating states of the mind, it's almost setting them up for failure. Because in a way, they're not going to be able to control the states of their fluctuating mind. It's impossible. The mind is always moving. The mind is always active. So there is no, I'm going to calm this state without following the other rules of the Yoga Sutras, which is to be off in a cave, to do this, to do that.
True.
So in a way, I'm not saying it's not of value to teach that, but I think in cultural context, it's good to have kind of some thought there. So, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material activities by the process of yoga. So then it goes on. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. I'm going to read that again. The perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. Now, I want you to read 1.3.
Exactly. That is so cool. All right. Here we go. Okay, then the seer dwells in his own true splendor.
Okay, so then the seer will bask in their own true nature, right? They'll see who they really are. Once you calm the mind down, then you'll see who you are. Here, in the state of perfection called trance, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized, so this state, you know you're there, when one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. Now, what's beautiful about this, the Bhagavad Gita, not that I don't like the Yoga Sutras, but the Bhagavad Gita gives you more to chew on. So then he goes on. Tells you more about this state that you're supposed to be in, where the seer sees its own true nature. If you don't know that you are Sat Chitananda, or eternally blissful, then you don't know when you're there, right?
So just to be clear, we are in that state, but because of the chitta,
the Maya, the illusion, the chitta,
vritti fluctuating,
material.
we don't realize that we're actually in a blissful state because we're deluded, so to speak, by all the material things and the thoughts going in our mind. Is that correct?
100%.
Okay.
So, in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless, transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. So, let me read it again. In that joyous state. So once you see who you really are, he's telling you, this is how you're going to know you're in it. in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless, transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. So, senses you don't really know yet. Happiness you have, you don't even know. You don't even know how happy you could be.
It almost seems like we're locked when your mind is out of control in the way we've been living before practicing yoga. It seems like our mind, we're locked into the five senses, in other words. And through practicing yoga and calming of the mind, then we activate these other senses, which these transcendental senses, you're saying, when we see ourselves truly as we are in that blissful state.
Right.
Am I correct?
You are.
Okay.
You are.
This is cool.
Established thus, one never departs from this truth. And upon gaining this, he or she thinks there is no greater gain. Think about that for a second. Established this one, you would never go back. Right. Once you realize the truth, it's kind of like people think they know the truth, and they think, I see you for who you are. They start yelling at you. They start vilifying you. They think they know who you are or whatever. And in that way, it's like they think that's their truth. There is this universal truth that is beyond our senses. That this is what yoga is trying to be.
Right.
I'm not saying this is actual factual, but I really like this idea.
No, this is way cool.
It sounds really awesome, right? Established was one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he or she thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulties.
Wow.
So, think about that. You're in the middle of a situation, and you're never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulties. I would say that if you want to do a litmus test to see if you are enlightened, think back to the last time you lost it. You lost your way. You got shaken. You felt like you got punched in the gut because somebody insulted you.
All right.
Guess what? You're not there yet.
Yeah, not
it keeps you in check.
Keep practicing yoga.
Keep practicing it. But you know what, Joe? It's like you get like a glimpse of it.
Yes.
And that glimpse of it is similar to what you glimpse in Shavasana.
Right.
When you're coming out of Shavasana, or you're in a good kirtan or something, and you walk away, whatever it was that was bothering you, you get some levity from it. Mm-hmm. You get some lightness from it. Now that doesn't mean that you don't walk outside and you step outside and you're right back in the mix. Mm-hmm. But you come back.
Right. You keep coming back.
And
right.
you get a glimpse of it. I feel like I see glimpses of it. But it's enough to keep me engaged coming back. Mm-hmm. I think people make a mistake though. They think that yoga is going to fix their life like
right.
that.
Right.
They're going to do the yoga class, and then they're going to transform the way and how they act and who they are as people. That takes time. Mm-hmm. So, being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. Think of the greatest difficulty, and you're not shaken. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact.
Wow. So,
let's read what Winthrop Sargent says, just to give us another feel for it. He's a little choppier, not quite as poetic, not quite as flowing, but it still does the job. When the mind comes to rest, right? So now he gives that. When the mind comes to rest.
The vrittis are gone.
The vrittis are gone. Chitta Nirodha, right?
Right.
You calm the chitta.
Yes.
Right? Restrained by the practice of yoga. So you have the practice of yoga. And when beholding the self by the self. So the seer sees who they really are. He or she, at this moment, he or she is content with the self, the Atma, the soul. You're content. And you can feel that, like I said, when you come out of Shavasana or a deep meditation, you're no longer so connected to, oh, I have a little belly roll, or I have does my outfit match? Does this go? Is she talking about me? Is he talking about me? Who's saying what? Sometimes you come out of Shavasana, all that just got left at the door.
It melts away.
Melts away. And you get a moment of clarity. So that's what they're talking about. You're content with yourself. Happiness, infinite, which that. That's kind of like choppy. That's the Sukha Atmakam Yattad, which is the Sukha, happiness, the transcendental happiness by transcendental senses. Senses, happiness we don't know, by happiness we can't even connect to on this plane. He knows the infinite happiness. He or she knows the infinite happiness, which is grasped by the intellect, the buddhi, the intellect. So you can grasp it by the buddhi and by transcendental senses. They have that there too. Established. You do not deviate from this truth. The tattva. Tattva means truth. That's the Sanskrit word. Having attained this, know there is no greater gain one can imagine. Established in this, he or she is not moved even in profound sorrow. Tam vidyam dukkha samyoga yoga samjitatam viyoga. So, tam vidyam. Let it be known. He's in the imperative here. He's telling, Krishna doesn't talk like this much in the Gita. Tam vidyam. Let it be known. I'm telling you this. Right? He's really vidyam, knowledge. Yeah, tam vidyam. You gotta know this. Right? Dukkha samyoga, viyoga, yoga samjitatam. So dukkha, displeasure, distress, unhappiness, sam, everything, yoga. My unhappiness is due to my yoga-ing to my dukkha.
Yes.
I am yogad to my unhappiness, which is material life, material mind.
Yes.
Right? Viyoga. This is not yoga. V negates. Yoga. This is not yoga. Yoga samjitatam. The detaching of the dukkha to it, that is the yoga. Let that be known.
That is cool.
Isn't that nice?
So it seems like the mind is not a bad thing at all. The issue with the chitta, the consciousness, the mind, the stuff that brings us the dukkha and the miseries is that we're attached to the material world, which can bring us discomfort and misery. So by the practice of yoga, what happens is we detach from the material world, and even while things may not be going your way in the external world, when you're in that state of samadhi or yoga, you're free from that because your intellect sees the trueness of the clarity, the seer of the way it really is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what happens to you on the outside. It's you still have that inner peace and that inner joy while you're going through something. So like you said, people come to yoga and think maybe, oh, my life's going to change. Maybe the circumstances might not change. Maybe they will, but maybe they won't. Can you still have peace? According to this, you can, because you're not, through the practice of yoga, you're calming the mind. You're not attached to this. Your intellect, your buddhi, as the way Sir Winston said, it attaches to the trueness of seeing you as you really are.
Yes.
Am I correct in thinking that way?
And this, by no means, I'm not saying it's better than the Yoga Sutras, but it helped me understand.
Yes. Yes.
It helped me understand that, because that is like, they're like notes.
Mm-hmm.
Sutras are like notes.
Bullet points, so to speak.
Points,
right.
This is a little more fleshed out.
Yes.
And it gives it to you over the course of, 3 different shlokas. And you will like this. So after that, Krishna goes on to say, this is yoga, to detach from your dukkha. It is to be practiced with determination and an undismayed mind. It is to be practiced with determination. So, it's not something that comes like that. It's something to be practiced over time.
Yes.
And I think people underestimate that with yoga. They think they're going to come and they think they're going to do some stretches and then they reach enlightenment. And it has to be practiced, put into use. As we were talking before, I say, you get triggered by one thing and then you apply your yoga. Over the years, you kind of patch that hole with some yoga flow. Oh, good, I got that one down. And then you think, oh, I'm good with that. And then someone comes along and just needles you in the right way. And then all of a sudden you're right back to your nonsense and your chitta vritti.
Yes.
Right? Chanchalam, they say. The mind is always moving. Chanchala. So, and you're right back in it, and you get another chance to up your game.
Yes.
So now I get, now I thought I had it. Okay, now I get to look at it again, and again, and again. And you get infinite numbers of chances to put this into a practice.
That's cool. Now, also it says with determination and not to be dismayed.
Yeah.
Like, don't be discouraged. Oh, I lost it. Forget it. This yoga ain't work. This yoga isn't working for me. Like, don't be, that to me, I don't know if I'm saying it in the translation and the flavor of that.
Yeah.
But in other words, don't give up. Don't get down on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't think this doesn't work. Don't think bad of yourself and self-annihilate yourself with your thoughts. Just keep coming back, because this is a process. So if you're determined, this isn't going to just happen in a week or in a weekend because I went to a seminar or something like that.
Right.
It's a lifetime of work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because he's saying once you reach it and you experience that state, there's nothing greater. You don't want anything else. A bigger house, money. I mean, all those things are nice in the material realm, but there's how many people who are movie stars or whatever, and they have everything you would think they would want. Money, fame, success. But even though they have these material things, there's no inner happiness. There's no ananda inside. So they sometimes take their lives.
So the chitta is still going.
It's still going.
It
didn't help.
Right, no. So, and I think it was Jim Carrey who said it. I hope that everybody becomes a multimillionaire so they can realize that money does not bring the happiness.
Right.
Because you could say that, oh yeah, we all kind of know the trite comment, oh, money doesn't bring happiness. But you have to have the money and still be unhappy to realize that.
Yes.
Because when you don't have money, you think, oh, if I just had money, it'd be happy.
That's true.
The person who teaches me stocks, his name is Ron Brandis. He's a great guy. And he says something. He says, this is Ron Brandis' first rule of investing and trading. And he says that essentially you're at an emotional disadvantage whether you make money or lose money in the market. Because if you make money, you think, you get kind of full of yourself and you think you know what's what. It's not true. And it's not true. If you lose money, and you've been trained by proper people, and you studied your craft, and if you lose money, you feel deflated and beat.
Right.
And you think you don't know anything.
Right.
And you're never going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you're always going to keep losing. Neither of which is true. Right? Neither of which is true.
To extremes, right?
Yeah. So same thing with yoga, right? It's like some days you're on it and you're like, no, I'm cool. I can deflect anything that comes in my way. I'm not going to absorb it. I'm going to stay in my zone. My chitta and my vrittis are good. Like I'm good. And then somebody comes at you from an angle you didn't see coming. Gets you. Now, you're then at an emotional disadvantage with either one. Because one, you think, I got this.
Right.
I never have to worry about it. I must be enlightened. No. Right? Because that's not true. And they come at you another way and you think, well, maybe I should give up all this yoga stuff together because it's obviously not working anymore. That's not true either.
Right.
So I think, and that's the sama. You find a middle ground.
The sama, the sameness, I guess,
yeah.
right? So even those thoughts are the fluctuating thoughts. They're material thoughts to think, oh, I've made it, or I'm horrible, I'm no way close. Those
Right.
are even material. So you have to detach from those and calm those thoughts down.
And I really think that's a great litmus test for yourself, which is even in the greatest difficulty, you're still in boundless happiness.
Right.
Man, I don't know anybody like that.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, in that way, are any of us enlightened? No, nobody I've met yet. You know, but that's okay.
Right.
That gives me upward mobility, and
Right.
but it's something to be approached as a practice.
Yes.
Something you're going to continually come to.
And it is nice to have a community of people who are like-minded and encourage each other in speaking the same type of things and have the same type of goal. It helps along the way.
Definitely.
Right.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you're in a position to donate and you like this content, you can hit the donate button in the corner, or Venmo the Funky Ohm, or PayPal it. It's cool. And hit subscribe, because that really helps us. Hit a like button too if you dug it. And we'll see you back soon.